Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 91. We're back to numbering them. When we're not doing it live, there'll be a number of an episode. When we're doing it live, it's just live. Episode 91. Obviously, we have to go. By the way, let me restart this. We have Poker Todd with us today for our weekly betting segment. Poker Todd, how you doing?
Very good. How you doing?
Good. Episode 91 has to be for Cameron Wake, who was one of the greatest finds in Dolphin history. There are other good 91s, but this is a guy the Dolphins found out of the Canadian Football League. Although found is a strong term because by the time they signed him, the dude had 39 sacks in 2 seasons in Canada, and every NFL team knew about Cameron Wake. But it was the Dolphins who were able to sign him. That was 2009, I want to say.
Do you remember the other team that was a candidate to sign him?
There were several other teams that were
There were
candidates.
several other teams, but Indianapolis Colts were the other highest bidder. It was a bidding war for Cameron Wake, and really the Dolphins got him because of Bill Parcells, as they got most things because of Bill Parcells back in that era.
Yep. Derek Wake, he was at the when he played at Penn State, then the CFL. And there was this great clip from him.
Great reason his name was Derek. It was on his identification tag.
Yes. When he was working as a trainer between
at Valley Fitness. Yes,
that's right. The great clip of him on YouTube at the time where somebody stuck a dollar bill or a 20 or 100, whatever, on the ceiling of the locker room for the BC Lions.
Not a low ceiling.
It wasn't a low ceiling, and he was challenged to go ahead and get it, and he jumped and grabbed it very easily. And Omar, I think we can agree easily the Dolphins player of the 2010s.
Without a doubt, and should be a Ring of Honor player, in my opinion. If there was a Ring of Honor player from this decade, it would be Cameron Wake. Phenomenal player in his prime, probably one of the best at his position. What I loved about Cameron Wake was that he was a good edge setter as well. One of the top-rated run stuffers at his position throughout his career. As his career got on, though, Wake not only sorted to decline as an edge setter, but then we learned he started to pick his shots and limit his playing time and really became a pass-specific only guy during the Adam Gase era. And we used to harass Gase all the time for at least a year about why Wake didn't play more snaps. And then Gase finally got fed up with us asking and said, he's the guy who decides when he goes on the field and when he comes off the field. I don't have anything to do with it. And then we confronted Wake about it, and Wake was like, yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, but if you remember, the early on is because he was coming back from that torn Achilles tendon that he had in a Thursday night game against the Patriots. And then I don't know if Cam all of a sudden was like, I kind of like this playing situationally like this. I'm going to keep doing that. But initially, that was the deal with him. And you mentioned the Dolphin honor roll. Yeah, they've stopped doing it. To me, he's screaming for a candidate for that. Not only that, but to sign a one-day contract because it's been done before and retire as a Dolphin instead of his last team, which was a Tennessee Titan. So anyway, we don't have Poker Todd with us to hear stories about former Dolphin players. We're here because it's gambling time, or it's the betting segment time, I should say. So Omar and Todd, do your thing.
Well, I find it very interesting about this game that it's been a 3-point line for most of the year. And in fact, it came in this week at a 3-point line, which basically means this is a pick'em game. Is that correct, Poker Todd?
Yes, typically, you can count on the home field advantage affecting a line by 3 points. So typically, if this was a neutral site field, it seems like it would be a pick'em game.
Quick note. I want to interject here and say something. For example, this actually will be a legitimate road game for the Dolphins. When they played at SoFi Stadium, that was new. That was neutral. That was about a neutral. Right. This actually is a legit road game because Buffalo does have a strong home field advantage. I've seen the line at 2.5 in a couple of places.
Yes, it's 2.5 on DraftKings. It's 3 on FanDuel.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And over under, what do we have? Like I think
53 and a half.
The way the Miami is scoring, do you feel comfortable with 53.5 points, Poker Todd? Which they have, I believe the Dolphins have the highest scoring line of the week.
They've become a difficult team in the fact that, as you guys speak of, they really haven't scratched the surface on offense. But that being said, they can beat you so many ways. And I think this is a run-heavy week for Miami because the success they showed early on against Buffalo in the second game last year, and if McDaniel really is, continuing to run the ball. So, it's kind of like Alabama. Alabama, could win some of the most ho-hum 17-3 games that were not close. This is a game where if the run game gets going, I could see us scoring 27 points. And, if we score 27, it's typically going to be an under game because Buffalo would have to score less than that and we would be under 53.5. So, I think I'd probably stay away from the total on this game personally. Everybody will have their own feel for what it does. But, in order to get to 53.5, if you think Miami's going to win or be competitive, they kind of have to get to 30. So I don't know if 30's in the cards.
Yeah, and you you referenced the running game success last in the Saturday night game at Buffalo last December, and of course, remember I wanted to point out the Raheem Mostert 67-yard run, which was pretty damn impressive.
Yes.
What I find interesting about this game, and it's a great matchup for two teams because, as I've said and argued and I believe the catalyst for the success Miami's having outside of Tua Tagovailoa is the offensive line. But then again, as Alan's pointed out, they really haven't played any good defenses so far this season. If you just look at what they've been able to accomplish, well, this is the best defense that they're going to face right now. And it's also one of the best fronts. The way that they go too deep on their defensive line, that's going to be a tremendous challenge for the Miami Dolphins offensive line. But what I also find interesting is that Buffalo likes to stay in their nickel package. And the Dolphins clearly in their 21 package want to force you out of your nickel package. So that's going to be a very interesting matchup that can impact the point score and also impact some of the top players and top performers in this game. Because if Miami wants to force you out of your nickel package, that means they've got to basically run the ball because your nickel package is going to feature your lighter unit, even though I think Buffalo's defensive line will allow you to handle your lighter unit. And it's also going to have to feature tight ends and fullbacks. And that's really one of the more questionable positions because Durham Smythe's battling an injury now. He wasn't listed yeah, exactly, Alan. He was not listed as given a game day status. So does that mean that we're comfortable with him in his hamstring injury?
Mm-hmm. He's playing, and it maybe also means that maybe we'll see a return of the Alec Ingold catches. And here's the thing: if you're going to play nickel against this offense, you better not miss tackles.
Right.
Which is what Denver did. I mean, first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, on first down, on second down, on third down. I mean, the whole game. And this is how it wound up going haywire, along with other things. Any prop bets stand out to you in this particular game?
The one thing I do like is on DraftKings, it's 11.5. FanDuel's 11.5. DraftKings is 12.5 carries for Raheem Mostert. The over/under. I think that's probably my target for my even money prop. Yes, absolutely over.
And where are you with Devon Achan? And from a betting standpoint, since
he's interesting again because it some of these prop bets are difficult because of opportunity. Again, I mean, did he get a huge run last week because of success, or is he really going to be part of that rotation where, in the event that he's not, breaking off 60-yard runs, is he going to see, 10 plus carries, or is he going to be a change of pace guy? You just don't know yet. You just really don't. It's difficult to know if that was a microcosm of what we are or a wonderful Sunday afternoon that's probably not going to be duplicated.
Listen, you hit on some 2 touchdowns. If you're willing to bet on 2 touchdowns,
there's some money there.
I told you last week was ridiculous. Obviously, I was wrong. You could have built a house if you would have bet on 4 touchdowns. Yes. I'm sure.
Yes.
What do you think that the Dolphins, when you have a game of that nature, they clearly have to ride the hot hand or test you out to see where you are? Now, me and Alan will both be the first to testify. Devon Achan was 4th on the team's depth chart, and for a reason. He'd been outperformed by everybody else. But when you when you have that hot hand, you got to ride it. So do you take advantage of that as a bettor?
I liked him last week for 2, and it played out. It just played out much earlier than I thought it would. Was you combine the heat and his speed and missed tackles. If he got one early, you had a real good chance of getting a second late, because exactly what happens, he's any handoff, he can go 60 or 70 for that second one, and typically it might just be one missed tackle, a safety with the wrong fit, and it turns into that second touchdown. And with the odds you're getting on those things, again, it's not even that it has to come once a season, because we that gamble as a profession, we look for expected value. If we were to run this bet a million times, how would we turn out? A recreational gambler may look at one Sunday afternoon being a winner or a loser. I look at a bet that if I ran this all the time, would I have a positive expected value? A-Chain last for 2 touchdowns, that needed to come out once every 4 seasons for it to be profitable. If I bet it every game for 4 seasons, if he did it one time, it would be a profitable wager. So, that's some of the, like Julian Hill this week started at 1,900 for a touchdown, so 19 to 1. If Smythe was a little more banged up, I would have loved that bet. Now that he's probably going to be on the field, because I do think they'll reward him. He did an excellent job blocking in the run game last week. I think this week, he would be rewarded on the goal line if we got the run game going. He did get the one throw that I don't think he got his head around quick enough, but it wasn't a great throw by Tua either. But that could have been a touchdown. And at last week, he was almost $3,000 for a touchdown.
Jeez. Would Smythe's status affect that prop line on Julian Hill?
Well, what affected Julian Hill's prop line is everybody caught on to him early in the week. At 19 to 1, he was a gambling, favorite in the middle of the week, and they took it from 19 to 11 or 12. Now, I do expect it to creep back up before game time tomorrow. But yeah, when Smythe was injured and people looked at the game and they looked for the value in Miami right now is a hot team to look at your touchdown scores, because if you're going to score 10 a game, you might as well go find a few. But
what about Robbie Chosen though?
Yes,
hold on, wait a minute.
That was the one. I made some money there. Yeah, he was.
How does that work when a guy isn't promoted or elevated yet to the active roster?
So if they put a guy out and he doesn't step on the field, they'll void the wager. Sometimes they're stubborn. If he gets on the field in special teams snaps, they'll still count it. Not always, it's really subjective to certain players and certain books and how much pressure they get from the right people. But yeah, typically if a guy doesn't play or doesn't get elevated, the bet just voids.
Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting what his line is to score a touchdown or a catch total, just because I think Robbie Chosen is being elevated. I think if he is elevated, I think he's going to find a role and actually play. Can you imagine this offense if they've got 3 spacers on the field? Like, what the hell do you do as a defense?
Yes, as of right now, he's not listed on either of the major books. But last week, he went into the game at 1,400, so 14 to 1. 2 touchdowns was 19,000. And at halftime, he elevated to 2,800 if you bet it in game. So I had him before the game, and then at halftime I doubled down on him and got 28 to 1 with him. So I was the biggest Mike White fan, and I know how fast Chosen is, but Surtain was, I was like, come on, Robbie, get across the goal line here, because if he got tackled, he was not getting another opportunity to score there.
No, that was it. And he seemed like he was running out of gas a little bit.
Yes, absolutely.
He starts going sideways to try to get away from Surtain.
So what are some of the player prop bets, touchdown bets for the Dolphins Miami game? For the Buffalo Miami game, do you feel is a good avenue to put a parlay on?
Well, unfortunately, again, they've absolutely tanked all of our I mean, Tyreek Hill is minus 140. So you have to lay $140 to win 100 that Tyreek Hill is going to score a touchdown. I mean, I understand how wonderful he's been, but scoring a touchdown in the NFL is difficult. That's not an even money proposition to me. I mean, that at these odds, Tyreek Hill would need to score 20 touchdowns a game for that to make, or 20 touchdowns a season for that to make sense. I don't want to lay money on that. I think, like I said, if you gave me an opportunity to bet Raheem Mostert over 11.5 carries at even money or Tyreek Hill to score a touchdown, I'm taking the over on the carries.
Okay. Now, how do you feel about Jalen Waddle at plus 160?
Jalen Waddle's had success against Buffalo. So, that's somewhere where, that's intriguing to me. Again, I wish it was a little higher. I think the true on Jalen Waddle should be more like plus 220. But, as a fan, I'll take the plus 160 with Waddle, and try to team that up. Like Tua's passing yards, again, 273.5. They've taken a lot of the fun out of it. I mean, when you want to put them at 255, 263, you feel like there's some room for error there. But once you start getting into that 275 range, the flow of the game could really affect that. I mean, it's 275, you need a little cooperation with the flow of the game, So the Dolphins, unfortunately, very quickly have made it difficult on better. It was a smorgasbord for 3 weeks where you could make a ton of money, but the odd makers have caught on now that the entire betting public is running over to the Dolphins and seeing that there's opportunity. The odds have become very difficult on them, and this is where you have to start trying to be sharp and finding those game specific props like Raheem Mostert rushing attempts, to go back to that again, or finding that player that we know may be elevated, has a shot at 2 touchdowns, or a Julian Hill at 19-1, something along those lines. Because if you're just looking at the chalk players with the Dolphins, they've taken, Tyreek Hill's 83.5 yards receiving for even money. I mean, again, that's you prorate that over the season, and you're looking at a 1,500-yard season, which we know he's capable of, but I don't want to bet that at even money.
One, I wanted to ask you about some of these popular same game parlay bets that they proposed out there. They gave me Tua over 271, Josh Allen over 268, Tua over 1.5 in terms of passing touchdowns, and Josh Allen over 1.5. They told me if I put a $10 wager down, I could make $43. How do you feel about the bets that the sites propose to you for parlays?
They're just somebody else's opinion. And so much of this is subjective. As we get deeper, and as it gains interest, we can really start talking about finding, like I said, that expected value and finding these recreationally. They're fun. It's almost like fantasy football. But when you start looking for real value in these, that's probably not where I would go. Like I said, it's just somebody's opinion, and it's exciting when teams score. But there's a lot more opportunity in finding that one player or that one line that's very far off.
All right. So give me some opportunities here.
Okay, well, if you want to just have fun, just absolute fun for...
No, I want to make money.
Okay, but here's one that it's not going to be life-changing money, but it is, you're going to go on vacation. If you were to think that Miami is possibly going to repeat a massive performance, if you were to take, because sometimes it's about tricking the algorithm. These parlays are put together by an algorithm with odds, but sometimes there's something that'll trigger it that just doesn't make sense. Because if you were to take Tua at 325 yards, and then you were to take both of our wide receivers at 125 yards each, and I know this is not possible, but not that it's not possible. It's not probable that they're both going to go over 125. But if Tua goes for 325, somebody's got to get the yards. So Tyreek Hill at 125, Jalen Waddle at 125, Tua at 325. Miami at over 26.5 points, and Buffalo at under 27.5 points. So basically, we're looking for that. The type game we're talking about, a shootout type game, that pays $26,000 for $100. $10 is 2,600. That's a throw $10 on it.
$26,000
on it
pot
and have fun.
is a car. It's not a vacation.
And
I don't know how
like
you
I said,
vacation.
again, now think about that. So if you're going to give me 260 to 1, we can play for 10, 15 seasons where I only have to hit it once. You know what I mean? So that's a bet that you throw $10 on it and you hope Tua has a day like that. And again, with Waddle and Hill, it's always possible because they can go into the fourth quarter with 62 yards on their own, 25-yard line, and Tua hits them with a slant. And the next thing you know, you have 125. I mean, it can be one play with either one of them. So while 125 is it's a lot of yards for a wide receiver, it's certainly a lot for two. It also can be one catch for either one of them that brings you over the top of a bad day. They could be having a ho-hum 4 for 40 type day that turns into 125 quickly.
If I felt comfortable with putting money on Jalen Waddle having a big game and felt comfortable with putting money on Raheem Mostert having a big game, what would some of my better bets be? What would some of my better opportunities?
Mostert is 50.5 yards on over-under. I think the over is a pretty good bet there. Now, also, you can, if you really like Mostert, if you think that he's going to have a big, big day, if you're willing to bet over 75 yards, it's plus 300. So you're getting 3 to 1 on that. And if you think he's going to have a 100-yard day, it's plus 950, almost 10 to 1. So a $10 bet, you win $95. $100, it's $950. And again, with his speed, it can be a ho-hum 40-yard day in the fourth quarter, and the next thing you know, he's got 100.
I like that lineup. I like that matchup just because I don't think that they have the linebackers to hang with Mostert, especially on these lateral plays. And I also believe that this is going to be, even though you saw Devon Achane have a breakout game, Miami and Mike McDaniel also made sure Raheem had a very productive game. So we're not asking about, when is Achane going to take over the backfield? This is a team that belongs to Tua and it belongs to Raheem, in my opinion.
Right. And I think that
yes.
And protecting Tua has become, of course, it's always paramount, but you can tell that was the theme of the season. And one of the things that subjected him to some hits last year was the fact that we constantly got behind the chains, and we were very effective at converting those 3rd and 8s, 9s, and 12s. And a lot of that was pre-snap penalties, but a lot of it was, not having success on first down. I think that there will be a concerted effort to run the ball on early downs to not subject him to that Buffalo pass rush. So I think that's what, even if there isn't a massive commitment to the run game, they are going to try to stay ahead of the chains because you don't want to turn these pass rushers loose. No matter how well our offensive line has been playing, you want to stay ahead of the chains against Buffalo.
That's a good point. And they right now did the season. The only thing they haven't done well offensively is 3rd and short.
Right.
Third and 1, actually. They're like 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. I think they're 2 for 6. It's the only thing they haven't done well. Everything else.
Well, again, I mean, I think you've spoke about it, Poop. The Ingold 2 plays in a row, that was a little crazy. I think now that Chris Brooks got a little bit of run, if he's your short yardage back, he's got to get on the field on those 3rd and 1 type situations because, Mostert runs really hard, but not in a 3rd and 1 situation. That's not the type back he is.
Right.
So I think Chris Brooks will start being a little bit more of the run game in those short yardage situations. And he's one of the touchdown scorers that still has a lot of value. It's over $1,000 for him.
Here's one bet that I think is safe and easy money. Unfortunately, it's for betting on Buffalo. So I know Dolphin fans will feel some type of way. But Josh Allen at 35.5 yards rushing. Are you crazy?
I'll give you one that's even better than the Dolphin fans will bet. I'll be happy to bet it. Josh Allen to throw an interception. Do you know since 2020, Josh Allen? Yeah. Do you know since 2020, Josh Allen hasn't gone 2 games in a row without an interception?
Okay. So Josh Allen throws an interception. Josh Allen at 35 rushing yards. Jalen Waddle at the over on his yardage, and maybe a Jalen Waddle touchdown. Those are where I'm comfortable putting my money.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are all safe bets, and I probably try to figure out some Raheem Mostert play. I don't know exactly where or what I feel comfortable with. Maybe a Raheem Mostert touchdown, but those are where I feel comfortable. Alan, anything you find in the player prop bets that intrigue you?
No, you know what the question I had that I've been wondering is the over under on the season win total. Dolphins started at 9.5, unless I'm severely wrong. I got to imagine it's higher than that. I mean, because they adjust those as the season goes along, correct?
They do. Yeah, I think, and I haven't checked it recently because I don't see a lot of value in that wager. First of all, I have to put my bet up now and I don't collect until January. And it's an even money wager. So unless it was absolutely stealing and they still had it at 9.5, I'm not looking to bet that wager. You know what I mean? I think there's plenty more value. You know, us degenerates, we like to
now.
Exactly. I like betting on the first pitch of a baseball game result. You know what? It takes me about 30 seconds and I'm paid or I've lost my money and we can move on.
Hey, and if it's Angel Hernandez who's their home plate umpire, bet on a strike.
Absolutely.
No matter where it's pitched, going to be a strike. The player prop bet for this game is, I'm curious, do we have a line on number of touches for Devon Achane?
Yes.
Sorry, hold on. Achane. Sorry.
He was the last attempt. His yardage totals 36.5. If you're willing to bet 50 yards with him, he's plus 170, which is funny that he's valued to get 50 and 75. He's plus 700. So, they expect a pretty big split between him and Mostert, as far as the books go. There are some telltale signs on when the public money is influencing the Vegas odds and when they really believe something. And typically what I like to do is go look at next week's line to see how they feel this game's going to go. Like next week, Miami is right now giving 9.5 to the Giants. Now, in the event that Buffalo were to beat us by 10 points, that would seem out of line. So realistically, it just feels like Vegas expects Miami to give a good performance. If we're going to be 9.5 points favorite next week, because one thing they're not going to do is go from 9.5 to 4, because they're taking so much money in at 9.5, it wouldn't behoove them to move the line like that. So they're kind of stuck at that number. Now, it can fluctuate to 10, it can go down to 9, maybe even 8.5, but you're not getting this massive move under 7, barring an injury, if Tua were to go down or something like that. But, they expect Miami to continue this. They believe Miami's real. You used to be able to find games where you could look at next week and knew the head thought Miami had no chance, this week. But it looks like Vegas is bought in.
Well, let me ask you about the rest of the week's games. Where do you see an opportunity from a betting standpoint to make some money on a parlay that involves a couple other teams?
So this year's been funny. I mean, survivor pools are getting murdered. I mean, I know in several of them we lost half the field between Arizona's upsets that they've had and Indianapolis with Baltimore.
Yeah,
those teams are going down. I could have
sworn that Dallas Arizona game was a safe money for survivor pools.
Yeah,
and got a lot of survivor pools killed.
It did. Jacksonville was another one. I mean, they got it handed to them. And Baltimore losing at home to Indianapolis, I think there were a few bad calls in that game late. But that being said, the game shouldn't have been close. And, they got it taken to them. But so I'm going to break, there are no hard rules in what I do, but I don't like betting favorites on the road typically. I don't want to lay points if I don't have to. But this week, I think 3 teams – they're all road favorites.
I want to know Poker Todd's rules, but go ahead. Tell me.
So 3 road favorites this week, and one of them's winless. I think Minnesota beats up Carolina this week. They're minus 4.5. I'm going to lay the 4.5. I'm not even betting them on the money line. I think Minnesota finally rights the ship a little bit. I think Bryce Young's struggling a little bit. Flores is blitzing at double the rate any NFL teams ever finished the season at. But that being said, if he blitzes this week, I think Bryce Young's in trouble. I'm going to bet Minnesota for a defensive touchdown this week because I think their defense is going to take one the other way. Cincinnati, I just don't think Tennessee has anything. I really don't. I don't think as an organization they've given up on the season, but they should. I mean, it just doesn't look like a good operation. They dismantled a team that was pretty successful when they traded AJ Brown, and it's gone downhill since. And then I think Denver bounces back. They got the ultimate bounce back game. They got Chicago. So the only team playing worse than what Denver did last week, well, Chicago was as bad as Denver last week. It's just the Chiefs had a little mercy and only scored in the 40s. But I'm going to lay the 3.5 with Denver. I'm going to lay 2.5 with Cincinnati, and I'm going to lay 4.5 with Minnesota. And I think all three of them, even though they're on the road, I think all three of them get it done. I think all three of them could be double-digit games.
I got one for you here. Do we have an over-under on the number of times NBC is going to show Taylor Swift in the Sunday night?
There's not a high enough number for the under. Oof.